So yeah, I don't take it lightly what it means to get up here every Sunday and to share my heart and my mind with you. Because I know words are powerful, right? And we get that from James this morning too, where he says that he talks about the power of the tongue and how careful we should be about that. So I'm going to talk about that. But first I want to call out again just what our church just has been through these past couple of weeks, the physical plan of the church. If we're talking about the church as a building, it has been through some really interesting and good transitions. The biggest of which, maybe the largest update that our church has had in a while, is to our wiring, our electrical work. And thanks to Dwight and thanks to those who gave to make that possible, and we're still in that process, of course, of the capital campaign. But thanks to all of them and to all of that, we now have new wiring, replacing the old knob and tube, the historic wiring that we had in the farmhouse. And they'll say, but we've always done it that way, knob and tube. We can't, no, we had to change that. And we definitely didn't spend all that money just to follow the latest trends in electrical wiring. It's a safety concern, right? Because that old wiring can fail. We had to replace the breaker panel in the basement as well. That can fail, and failure can mean a fire. So for safety's sake, we replaced that old wiring and we tried to avoid burning our church down, which is good. But that's not the only way to burn a church down. There's also incense. And I don't quite speak from experience, but almost. Because some of you know I went to Virginia Theological Seminary, and I was coming just on the heels of them having built a brand new chapel. And they did not build a brand new chapel just for fun. They did it because the old chapel had burned to the ground. And it happened when a student was handling the hot coal from the incense and accidentally threw it away in a regular trash can and then locked up. And the next morning, the building was just gone. It burned it. So, whoopsie. Right? I'm sure there was egg on his face, right? Sorry, guys, my bad. I burnt our church down. That's tough, right? So electrical wiring can burn down a church. Incense, hot coals can burn down a church. But there's another way still. And that is with our words. And you've picked up here that I've transitioned from talking about the church as a building to the church as the people, which is really probably more accurate anyway. The words that we use can destroy us. It can destroy me. It can destroy the group that we're part of. And that's what James is talking about here. He says that the tongue is a fire, and a great forest can be burned down by just a small flame. And it's happened before. Not here, thankfully. But the stories are out there of churches that were thriving, that were doing well. And I see some heads nodding. Maybe you have been a part of a church family before, and maybe that church family burned down. Maybe it just was decimated or it shrank because of words. The way we choose to speak to one another. And this concerns James greatly, because he's thinking of all of these different kinds of ways that words can do this to us. And there's so many. There's backbiting and gossip. There's false accusations. There's discouragement. There's bad faith teaching. Even silence can do damage to a body, to a community, if we are not sharing the words that need to be shared. Words can bring us down. So notice Peter's experience, too, in this morning's gospel. And there's so much in this gospel that we could go into, but I'm going to focus at the moment on that little, "Get behind me, Satan." Right? That's a tough thing to hear from anybody. But the Son of God is calling you Satan. That's like, okay, maybe I need to reevaluate some things. But what was that a response to? The response to Peter taking Jesus aside and rebuking him. Jesus was telling them the truth. He was being forthcoming. Hey, you guys, just a heads up. I'm going to be betrayed, and I'm going to be killed. And, oh, by the way, I'm going to rise again 3 days later. Big news that they somehow managed to forget almost immediately. Like, I'm here being honest with you guys, and Peter says, never. And you see in other Gospels what his actual words are when he says that this should never happen to you. And Jesus says, because of what you just said, I'm rebuking you. You need to get your act together and trust me. Listen to me. He said exactly the wrong thing, and it was just a few verses after saying exactly the right thing. He had said, you are the Messiah. And in other Gospels, you are the Son of the living God. And Jesus said that people haven't shown this to you. God has shown this to you. Your words are important and will be remembered forever. But so were the other words that he said. So when we look at this metaphor of the tongue as a flame and our words are a fire that can burn down a forest, well, does that mean our words are sometimes a flame? Does that mean our bad words are a flame? But James says they are a fire, they set on fire the cycles of nature. I don't think he means that only our negative words, only our problematic words are a flame. I think James is saying that our tongue is always a flame. And the cycles of nature is part of our story, part of our own experience, driven by the tongue. And another metaphor comes to mind here. I'm reminded, when I think of cycles of nature, I'm reminded of my high school. I mentioned a seminary, now I'll mention high school too. Shawnee Mission South has an environmental science laboratory, is what it's called. It's a few acres on the school's campus that's there for environmental studies. And they have several different biomes within this one little 6-acre or 7-acre space. And one of those biomes is prairie. Now, in order to keep that prairie a prairie, what do they have to do? Some of you are aware of this. You have to do a controlled burn every once in a while. Otherwise, it just gets overgrown and becomes forest like the rest of the property, right? They use fire to maintain that space. So it's the same fire that can burn down as the fire that can maintain. The same fire that can incinerate is the fire that can warm. Or the same fire that can destroy is a fire that can purify and refine. And we know this from metallurgy, from blacksmiths and silversmiths, how they use fire. Or even those who work in glass and so many different industries. Fire is refining, fire is shaping and molding us into who we're supposed to be. The same fire can do both good and harm. The same mouth, the same tongue, as James says, can bring both blessing and curse. And I don't think we always recognize just how much power we have. And I've been trying to instill this in all of us in the last few sermons, of having a powerful heart, of choosing to believe God when he is giving us this agency, rather than saying, unworthy, I'm pond scum, I'm lower than the snake's belly. All of these things that religion sometimes hands us to say that we're not good enough. I hear Jesus saying the opposite. We are so powerful. And I hear James singling out the tongue. We have so much power with our words. To bless or to curse. To incinerate or to lift up, to maintain, to refine. And when we open our mouths, I think we need to be asking ourselves, which kind of fire are we choosing? Amen.